Good morning, everyone. My name is Tony, and I'm here to present DexWild, Dexterous Human Interactions for in the Wild Robot Pulse. So, I guess one question we're all interested in here is how do we get robots that can generalize? Generalize to different objects, generalize to different environments, and maybe generalize to different tasks as well. In this work, we're mostly interested in object and environment generalizing. And we also touch upon some embodiment and task generalization. But the main focus is object environment. And it's in my belief that generalization requires data coverage. For learned policies to generalize across different tasks, environments, objects, we need to be able to have a diverse and large enough data set to train upon to be able to interpolate between interpolate novel scenes between the data that we've already seen in the training distribution. So where do we get such a large and diverse data set? Well, one of the most popular approaches nowadays is to just teleop a robot, which gives us really high quality data that we can use to train our robots. But taking a robot outside and collecting data in all these different places and all these different tasks is extremely challenging. Another popular approach is to directly use human videos. These have a huge amount of diversity, they're widely available, there's tons and tons of videos on the internet, but using them directly for robot training is a bit challenging, and it's not as straightforward as training from robot data. So how can we design a data source that's both high in quality and diversity? Well, the simplest thing is to just take robots out of the lab. It was extremely difficult. That's why we're introducing DexWild, a human hand data collection system for collecting high-quality, diverse demonstrations. Before I start to explain how our method works, I want to quickly touch upon why we choose the human hand as the manipulator. There's been plenty of work recently on designing different manipulation interfaces that allow you to collect data in the wild. For example, UMI, robot utility models, and they've shown impressive generalization in the wild. But the problem with this is that it might work when you want to deploy your policy on the same gripper in new scenes, or maybe even a different gripper that might come out in the future. The problem with collecting data with a gripper or specific hardware embodiment is that as hardware improves in the future, how are you going to retarget a robot gripper data to a highly dexterous robot hand that might exist in the future? That probably will. That's why we choose a human hand, which is extremely dexterous, and the data that you collect will probably not ever be limited, or the hardware won't ever be limited by the hardware that you have. So that's why we're introducing DexWild system. The first part is a hardware system that allows you to collect high quality demonstrations in the wild. And the second part is a co-training pipeline that allows you to train human and robot data together to enable robust generalization in the wild. So we believe that good data has three main traits. That it should be diverse, including many objects and environments and tasks, because of the reasons I mentioned before about data coverage. We want it to be high quality because we want to be able to train on the data directly. We don't want to do too many pre-processing steps and have to filter it down for quality and all these other things. And we want it to be reusable. As robots improve in the future, we want our data to have the longevity and not have to recollect data for every single hardware different thing that comes out every year. So these three traits guide our three design goals. We design our system to be extremely portable so we can bring it to many places and collect lots and lots of data. We design it to have high fidelity so that our data is very, very high quality. And we design our system to be robot agnostic so that as hardware improves, we can continue to use it. It's extremely easy to bring DexWild to different places like this one and collect demonstrations. There's only three components. There's a tracking camera that we use for wrist tracking using the Ruko marker. There's a hand sensor system where we collect observations and hand poses. And then there's a small PC that you bring to collect all the data that you collect. In total, we gather almost 10,000 demos and 93 unique environments. These are some of the objects for the different tasks that we collect with. But we're really focused on getting the highest amount of data coverage that we can. So we collect data at home or at the office, in different kitchens, or even in the game room. Indoors, outdoors, during the day, and during the night. We don't want our policies to be affected by where we deploy them. So these are some of the environments we bring our DexWild system to, and as you can see, we really tried to bring it anywhere and everywhere we could. So even though our system is extremely portable, we still want our data to be very high quality. So instead of using vision-based methods for hand pose estimation, we choose to use mocap gloves, which is robust to visual occlusion and provides the highest quality hand pose estimation. Then we capture high quality task-centric observations using wrist-mounted cameras. And then we use Ruko markers to track 360 wrist pose, which we found to be more reliable than other methods such as SLAM. To ensure that our data is robot agnostic, we attach cameras at the wrist of the human and the robot. By doing this, we're able to align the observation spaces. For example, these are like what example policy inputs would look like. And as you can see, they're very similar between the human and the robot. Then, like I mentioned before, by collecting data using human hands, we're able to retarget to any robot hand, even ones that don't exist today. So once we collect the data, how should we use it? The approach that we take is to co-train the large amounts of human data that we have with a small amount of robot data. And the intuition behind this is that we're able to leverage the diversity and affordances we learned from the human data. And we're able to leverage the grounding and low-level control from robot data. And by combining them together, we get policies that generalize really, really well. We collect tons of human data and a little bit of robot data, and we combine them together. And then we sample from this data set using a fixed ratio, which we find during our ablation studies, and train using standard behavioral cloning, such as ACT or diffusion. So once we have the model, let's bring a robot into the wild. We evaluate our policies across 5 tasks and 53 environments, and we find that our method generalizes 3.8 times better than robot data only. We find that our method works for bimanual tasks as well as single arm tasks. And these tasks, for example, the florist one, require coordination between both arms. We also find that if you collect data for some foundation low-level skills, such as grasping, you're able to collect human demonstrations for a completely different task that requires similar skills and be able to transfer over policies directly. And since our observation and action spaces are so aligned, you're able to deploy an entirely robot arm using the same hand. Or if you want to use a different hand or a new hand that might come out in the future, all you have to do is attach the wrist cameras, collect a few demos in the lab, and train it with the human data you already have, and we're able to zero shot to new environments like these. If you're interested in learning more about our work or trying to build DexWild for yourself, all of our hardware code is open source on our website. You can also reach out to me if you run into any issues, and I'm happy to take it.